Well, hey, look, let's go into. Hey, we know Thursday, Friday there were games. Talk to me about some of the games that you saw. We talked about the upsets, but what are some of the good ones that you saw? I mean, there were so many out there, so many close ones. What are some of the games that you watch in particular?
I thought the West Virginia Maryland game was good. It was had
Yeah,
an up and down game. Both teams had a chance to win. West Virginia, they're known for their defense. And they got to Maryland early. Getting turnovers, forcing bad shots by Maryland. Also, the foul trouble with Jameer Young, their best player, getting the foul trouble, getting them
that's huge.
frustrated. And that's what West Virginia does. But the thing is, Maryland came back. They stayed within. Kevin Willard did a great job. You know, making adjustments. Started to get more aggressive themselves, put more pressure on West Virginia's offense, which is they're not a great offense. And they were allowing early to get some easy looks at the basket. So they tightened that up, and Maryland was able to force West Virginia to make some bad shots here and there. And then, when you miss, because West Virginia, after a made basket or anything like that, they like the full court press. It's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
reminds you of Nolan Richardson's 40 minutes of hell when they were at Arkansas.
oh yeah.
They pressure you and pressure you. But if you don't make shots for West Virginia, especially in the second half, they can't set up their press because they don't want to get beat on the other end. So
Exactly.
they have to go back. And I think that helped Maryland get back into the game.
Yeah, and and also you had shooting. You had issue, especially coming out of halftime in West Virginia, wasn't able to really put up shots. Stevenson, who played all the first half, he was out for the first several minutes of the second half. Comes right in and is able to shoot a three. Then all of a sudden, I mean, with you paired with Maryland having being very active in the passing lanes, jumping every single pass, definitely getting some steals. But then you also had West Virginia not being able to make shots. And I mean routine shots. I mean, obviously Stevenson came in and tried to shoot it out from the perimeter, but they couldn't even get the stuff on the inside. So, I mean, honestly, the fact that they were still in the game late it said more about the fact that Maryland was struggling. But I mean, Maryland missed a couple free throws down late. West Virginia still an opportunity. But kudos to Maryland for getting it done. But I think you're absolutely right. Young has to stay in the game. Like he has to stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah, and I think tonight's game, the other game, Fairleigh Dickinson beating Purdue was so much fun to watch.
Oh
I
yes,
love it. It was a great game to watch. Again, they said, you know what, we're not going to let Edey beat us. We're going to let you other four beat us. Perfect game plan by their coach. And listen, games like this, Sean, the UMBC game, Ryan Odom coached him, right? Well, guess where he is now? He's at Utah State.
yep.
He got a job there. I think his name's Anderson, right? Tobias Anderson or something like that.
Okay.
He'll get a call in the next year or two if Fairleigh Dickinson becomes a program that makes regular appearances every year in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That phone's going to be ringing,
Absolutely.
for head coaching job. So it's a kind of a launching pad for those young head coaches with their first job in a mid-major to get up. I mean, look at Porter Moser with the Loyola Chicago.
Exactly.
Got the job at Oklahoma now. That's going to take a little time, but I think he's going to do a good job there. Get Oklahoma back, and they'll be in the SEC in a couple of years. So and that'll be a fun conference to watch basketball-wise as well as football-wise. So, it's just so much fun. It's so good to see these upsets. But again, it doesn't surprise me because Purdue is not a team that is going to wow you offensively. Again, they're one-dimensional. So, But it was a fun game. Still a fun game to watch. I'm happy for FDU. They play the winner of Florida Atlantic Memphis, which Florida Atlantic, I got them beating Memphis tonight. So we could have a 9-16 matchup on Sunday.
It could happen. It could happen. Right now, FAU is up 11-17 with 11:38 left in the first. Just quickly go around the scoreboard. You have number 12, Drake, playing Miami, down by 2 with 33 seconds left on the clock. Obviously, Montana State and Kansas State just kicked off, just over 17 minutes to play, and it's 4-2. A couple of the other games that we watched earlier, some of the games that I picked up on myself, honestly, Michigan State, USC. I had a special eye on this. Michigan State's the last team that I can say I like that I'm actually invested in, that kept it going. And look, they came out of the gates ready to go. But I honestly, I attribute a lot of this to the fact that this is a Big Ten team playing a Pac-12 team. They don't see each other regularly. You know what I mean? So it's a
they will in a couple of years. Yeah, they will.
Absolutely. We did. We know about that transition that's coming soon. Yeah. But they really don't. So Michigan State really took it to USC. They went right after those guys, and honestly, up early. I think that they got Hauser involved. Hauser was shooting. I was a little disappointed with Hoggard's play. I mean, he ran point pretty well, but he wasn't able to. He's not doing it for me right now. He's not getting it done. He played 28 minutes and he was 4 of 9 from the field. I really kind of need more from him, but as long as we had Hauser, I think it was good. But I think the biggest thing for Michigan State in this game is that they shut down USC's best player. Boogie Ellis averages 18, 19 points a game, and they held him to about 6 points this game, and he couldn't get it done. Peterson, another one of their shooters at USC, he was able to kind of get going a little bit in the game, but it was not consistent enough. And at the end of the day, you had Hauser, you had the big man in the middle, Siskent, dominate and able to kind of play with it, and they were ready to go, man.
Yeah, and Sean, like you said, with USC, they're kind of like Purdue in a way. They rely a lot on Boogie Ellis, because he's a great player. He's a great offensive scorer. He can get his own. But if you shut him down, that limits USC offensively what they can do, because they don't really have a lot of good ball handlers at that point. And they don't shoot the ball a lot. They like to go inside more. Other than Boogie Ellis, who will take shots, they're more of an inside team. And Michigan State was a matchup where their players are pretty tall as well. They can, match that and, neutralize that for USC. And all they had to do, like you said, they shut down Boogie Ellis and they're able to get the win. So, yeah. And then they play Marquette, right, in the next round?
Yep. They play Marquette with Shaka Smart. Right. And Marquette, that's another team that was close for a good portion of the game. And then towards the end, it was mainly in the second half. When Hawkins got going, he literally kind of distanced himself. He hit back-to-back threes early in the second half, and really that just kind of changed the game. It broke it wide open.
Yep. And their team they got in the Final Four. Marquette's that good. I really do.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely worried.
VCU, think about it. 2011.
VCU, yes. Yes. Speaking of VCU, unfortunately, VCU was not able to handle St. Mary's. They struggled throughout the game. One of their best players went down, went into the locker room, and was able to come back. But St. Mary's was just too consistent. They were able to break that VCU's press. That was huge. And there was a lot of, easy buckets that they were able to get that kind of kept VCU at bay.
Well, St. Mary's is one of those teams where, Randy Bennett, he's been there, seems like forever. And, they're kind of one of the great unknowns in college basketball,
Yep.
They have to share space with Gonzaga down in the West Coast Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And, they play Gonzaga. And they're one of those teams that, they're battle tested because they play Gonzaga twice and, 3 times because they played in the championship game. So they're mentally ready. They're mentally tough. They were able to handle the press pretty well against VCU. Good shooting, good spacing for St. Mary's. They're one of those teams that could go far. I don't know if they're going to be a Final Four team, but their style of play can, keep defenses on their toes and guessing most of the game. So especially if they shoot the ball well, that's going to be the key. The only problem with St. Mary's is I think they only play like 6-7 players, so they're not a very deep team. So if they get into foul trouble, that's where they could be in trouble. And you got to try to get St. Mary's into foul trouble if you're an opponent of theirs. And their offense, again, they space the floor very well, shooting inside out. But again, depth could be an issue with St. Mary's going forward.
We'll see. One of the things that they were talking about is that St. Mary's every year they build up to go against the Gonzaga, to have to obviously fight Gonzaga multiple times, and that's kind of their bar. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, if you can go ahead and do that coming into the tournament, man, you can have a day like this where you actually, shoot pretty well. But like you said, depth is going to be an issue, especially the deeper they get into the tournament. So let's see how this plays out. But hey, he's got a point. The Kennesaw State game versus Xavier was a solid game, and honestly, for a good portion of this, I was sitting here saying, here we go. Kennesaw State, number 14 seed. Could they do it? And I believe they could, Ben.
So did I. Yeah, they had it too. And, Xavier was able to make the plays down the stretch. Sometimes that happens, and Xavier, I mean, they're one of those teams where I only saw maybe a few games of theirs this year, but from what I see with them, they're either really good or they really have a bad game. It's like the Minnesota Vikings. They either win by 3 or 4 or they lose by double digits.
40. Right.
Something like that. I mean, that's a good comparison to make. Props to Sean Miller. He had a rough going his last couple of years. He was able to get back in the college game. We all know the story with the violations he had at Arizona. With Book Richardson and all his staff paying play. Now, that might not be such a problem now because of the NIL deals, but back then you couldn't do those things.
Do that. Technically, yeah.
But it's good to see Sean Miller resurrect his career again in the coaching ranks, especially because this is his second run at Xavier. So, he's going to do fine. He's always had good teams. The one blemish on his record is he doesn't have a Final Four. He's never been to a Final Four. He had a couple chances at Arizona, but it didn't work out. And who knows? Maybe this could be the year. Like I said, they either win close games or they lose by double digits. It just depends which Xavier team shows up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, and look, and shout out to Kennesaw State. Shout out to putting it together. I mean, look, they had more offensive boards. They shot better from 3-point. Now, I mean, they were still only 5 of 19, but still they shot better than an Xavier that was only able to make two 3-pointers. So, but at the end of the day, this game came down to the stripe, to the free throw line, and I mean, it wasn't even close. Xavier hit 22 from the line. I mean, that's huge. That's the difference that you see in this ball game. And it came down to it. They were able to get to the line more. They were successful and put them over the top. So,
well, Sean, that's like Purdue, and Fairleigh Dickinson. Fairleigh Dickinson was aggressive. They were able to get to the line more, and they made their free throws. Purdue, they made some of their free throws, but they also missed some of their free throws, and that was another kind of a difference in that game. Was the free throw shooting as well. So, yeah. Xavier, more aggressive team. They, got the calls and they were able to make their shots at the end. And they're playing on Sunday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So look, there was a bunch of games. Pitt coming in, fighting for their life to even get in the tournament, and now they're going over here and look, they handled Iowa State. And you put up the post. It was 21-2 at the beginning of the game. Now Iowa State was able to come back, but.
That was just a very bad shooting day for Iowa State. I don't know if it was the nerves or because sometimes when you're playing on a big stage like that, Sean, sometimes we've seen it in other teams, other years, the nerves can get to you.
Yeah. Get a hold. Yeah.
Either you're rushing too much or you're hesitant. And it seemed to me like Iowa State was, a little starstruck almost like in the moment. But Pittsburgh wasn't. They were like, you know what? We're going to shock some people. We're going to tell you why we deserve to be here. And they were aggressive. They got to the 50-50 balls. They were blocking shots in the lane. They're shutting down the lanes for Iowa State to go to. And it forced Iowa State to make a lot of bad shots. They're not the best shooting team in the league, but, they can get inside. Their big guys can, rebound and make baskets in the lane, but Pittsburgh shut that down, and they were more aggressive. So give them credit. Now, yes, Iowa State came back in the game. I think, they were more aggressive in the second half. Pittsburgh kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit and drove with the brake lights on, but still Pittsburgh were able to make enough plays in the end to get the win, stay on top. And then now they're moving on. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's stat of the game is defensive rebounds. Pittsburgh sat there and destroyed them on the defensive glass. So that's stopping Iowa State from getting second chance shots. That's stopping them from them getting extra opportunities and extra possessions. So hey, shout out to Pittsburgh. They've been playing in the tournament for a while. They've been playing the tournament kind of how like North Carolina was before we didn't make it. But yeah, they've been playing for their tournament lives forever. So hey, they live and survive in advance. They live to see another day. And look, honestly, the ACC has been down this year. I mean, compared to what it usually has been. But at the same time, you got teams like a Miami that's very athletic. You got a Pittsburgh team that plays great defense. Duke obviously is making strides, winning by 20 yesterday. You know what I mean? So the ACC, albeit the greatest team in the ACC is not in there, the ACC is still a formidable force. So I'm eager to see kind of what they do. You got NC State, another one. They went toe to toe with Creighton, and Creighton was able to pull away later in the game. But NC State, that's another one that, I mean, it was nothing to laugh at. I mean, they really came out there firing, and they had Creighton tied close all the way through the first half and most of the second half.
Well, Sean, a lot of it's matchups, depending on who you play in the tournament. Sometimes, like a Pittsburgh, I think we're a bad matchup for Iowa State because, Iowa State's a little smaller team. Pittsburgh's a bigger team, and they're a better defensive team. Iowa State relies a lot on their shooting, and they couldn't make shots today. Same with Purdue. Look at this. Sterling Dickinson's probably the smallest team in the tournament. And, they have a big, tall giant and needy that they could triple team, quadruple team. And it forces Purdue to be out of their comfort zone, happen to make shots and being hesitant. So it's about matchups, Sean, in the tournament. Sometimes you get the luck of the draw, like you see in these upsets. Furman probably was a bad matchup for Virginia. This is the only maybe the second game I've seen Furman play all year, but it looked like a bad matchup for Virginia. So sometimes it's just about the matchups.
Oh yeah, and at the end of the day, you also have to make your shots. And when you have a one and done, you cannot afford to be, to have a poor shooting day. And that's what ended up happening with North Carolina State. Despite them being close, they only shot 37% from the field, where you have Creighton shooting almost 50% from the field. So, you know what I'm saying? You can't – a Creighton team who's very well coached, you absolutely know that. You have to be able to shoot the lights out and capitalize on their mistakes. But Creighton, hey, to their credit, Creighton played good, and they advanced. But, hey, NC State, season done.